A Canadian court has granted an injunction to a temple in Toronto, preventing protesters from gathering within 100 meters of its premises, as it is all set to host a consular camp. The restraining order was passed by a judge of the Superior Court of Justice on the basis of an application filed before it by the management of the Lakshmi Narayan Mandir, which is located in the Scarborough locality of Toronto. Now, in the order, the judge stated, on the balance of probabilities, the applicant has satisfied the elevated requirements of a motion for an injunction restraining the protesters from encroaching the 100-meter perimeter of applicant's temple. Brian on the telecast with me. Brian, fast-paced developments taking place, and now there has been the judiciary in Canada that has intervened with regards to a number of threats and protesters where incidents have turned violent and attacks have been made, threats being made to the Indian consular camps that had been set up or that were scheduled to set up in Indian temples in Toronto.
Well, Megha, definitely now the Canadian court has issued an injunction to the Lakshmi Narayan Mandir in Toronto, prohibiting protesters from gathering within this very 100 meters of its premises, and when the temple is even set to host a consular camp as well. Now, very importantly, talking about this restraining order, it was granted on Thursday by a judge of the Supreme Court of Justice in Ontario, in response to this very application also that was filed by Temple's management, which is also located in the Scarborough area of Toronto. And in the ruling also, the judge noted that the applicants had met the elevated threshold that is required for an injunction, and it also stated that on the balance of probabilities, the applicant has satisfied the elevated requirements also of a motion of an injunction restraining the protester from encroaching the 100-meter perimeter of the applicant's temple order. Now, this order has also been acknowledged that that while violence might not occur, but harm extends beyond physical aggression. It also emphasized the potential for intimidation, particularly of elderly individuals also now who will be visiting the temples for consular service or worship, which could harm the community the temple represents. Now, the court also concluded that the likelihood of harm was significant enough to justify. And also, Khalistani groups, including the SFG, has also previously targeted the temple's consular camp.
Right, absolutely. Stay on with me, Brian. Also on the telecast with me is Arvind Tejawat. He's the international affairs expert. Arvind Tejawat, do you think this is a step that has been taken by the Canadian judiciary that is going to help ensure safety and security of our consulates?
In a Canadian system, the Canadian democratic system, they have a separation of the powers. So if the judiciary has granted injunction, the 100-meter injunction from the temple, then it doesn't mean that the Canadian government has changed its attitude. And I doubt that if the Justin Trudeau is in a power, then I doubt that he will be a little bit lenient towards India. But this is the win-win situation for the Indian diplomats and the Hindus there in Canada,
right,
who really received the court order, a superior court from Canada. They received the order, and the court has granted the injunction. So it's really a good situation, and it also proves that even the superior court in Canada, they have proven that what the Indian diplomats and the Indian foreign ministry was saying was very much true. Because actually, even at a foreign land, Jaishankar has several times spoken in front of the media that the Indians and the Hindus there in Canada are not safe at all. So I suppose this is really a victory of Indian diplomacy.
Absolutely. There has been another concern that has been raised by the Indian High Commission in Canada, talking about how their consulate staff, the diplomats over there, have been under surveillance of the law and order agencies, of the government, of the intelligence in Canada. How are we going to resolve this situation?
Megha, you think for a moment that if the same thing happens in India towards the Canadian diplomats, then do you think that Canada and the rest of the Europe is going to tolerate it? If they are not having that much capacity to tolerate, then why the Canadian diplomats and the Canadian politicians are expecting from us to do the different things? And but I suppose that Justin Trudeau is in power, I don't think that the India and Canada is going to resolve these issues. And I suppose
Right.
you're right, Megha.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. Also, if you could shed light, because in the recent weeks and days, there were a number of, two of these incidents that are taking place where there was a projected attack that had been plotted against the consular camps that had been set up in a number of temples in different parts of Canada. In fact, the Canadian police had even come out and said that the consular camps should be stopped from being held because they would not be able to assure the safety and security of the Indian diplomats over there. Now that's a concern, and the judiciary right now has intervened. Do you think situation will improve, even if marginally, for the Indian diplomats?
Right, Megha. Actually, as I told you in the beginning, that judiciary is also part of democratic system. So it's a judiciary, and since the judiciary is not having a direct connection with the government, but what the judiciary can do, judiciary can just pass the order and can show that okay, this is fair and this is not fair. But finally to implement the order, the responsibility is lying on the Canadian government, Megha. So let's see that what the Canadian government do. But if the Canadian government is not providing enough security to the Indian diplomats and consulars, then definitely it would be a contempt of the court. So I don't think that the Canadian government is in condition to go for the contempt of the court. But unwillingly, what the Canadian government will do, that it will provide the security. And but at the same time, Megha, my concern is that the Canadian government should not give that platform where the Khalistani people are openly demonstrating their weapons to certain Hindus over there and to threaten the Indian government. This is not the way to put their way of differences. Even if they are demanding for the Khalistan or whatever they are doing, but there is a democratic way to put their ideas and to put their difference of their opinions. But demonstrating weapons and threatening Hindu people over there. Even the last time, the temple also cancelled a program of Indian counselor over there.
Right.
So it should not be done now.
So at least some relief that has been given to the Indian diplomats and the consulate set up in Canada. Thank you for joining me on the telecast. On that note, I slip into a short break. Thanks for watching Newsx.
एंटी नार्को